right, come on guys, come on in. Hi, I'm James, a photographer and online media personality in Atlanta, Georgia. I live and work in my Castleberry Hill studio, and in my spare time, I love to cook. But being that I'm one of nearly 25 million Americans who lives in a food desert, it can be a challenge to find healthy and fresh ingredients in my neighborhood. This show is my way of sharing some of my favorite home cooking tips to eating restaurant quality meals on a tight budget through recipes I've learned in my travels and also my West African and Southern American roots. This is The Counter. Good afternoon. My name is James K. Holder II. Some of you may know me as Sir James II. I'd like to welcome you back to The Counter. This is our forum to discuss issues around food access in our communities that might prevent us from having healthy and affordable meals in our homes. Today is a very special day. We've had some really bad weather here. It's hurricane season down here in the South. And two of my friends have had to evacuate their home in Florida and come back to Atlanta. And so I'm going to treat them to a very special brunch this afternoon. And you can't have brunch if it's not shrimp and grits. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, this shrimp and grits recipe is one of my absolute favorites. It is a fairly quick recipe, doesn't require a lot of ingredients. I have my pot of water boiling, and I'm going to use that to first peel my tomatoes. These tomatoes were on the vine. They're very beautiful, but they aren't as ripe as I would want them to be. So I'm going to show you a few tips to get these tomatoes to flavor our sauce the way that we want, even though they're not perfect. I'm going to cut this little core out here. Put a little X. X marks the spot. I'm going to quickly drop this into a pot of boiling water. If you know anything about Southern cooking, you know that shrimp and grits is like one of those just Southern staples, and it's super comfort food, super easy to make. And this one is going to be super filling, and we are going to use a few different ingredients that are going to absolutely turn up the volume on this dish and also help us stretch our food budget just a little bit. I want to quickly take these tomatoes out. They should be ready now. Yes, they are starting to peel from the sides. You can see it there. It's sort of peeling off. So we're going to drop those right in here. I'm going to set that to the side. Next thing we want to be working on is our bacon. Bacon is one of these ingredients that I use in this dish to just make sure that we're getting a full body of flavor here. I'm just going to start with 3 sticks of bacon. You don't have to use this much if you're watching your salt content or your fat, but I'm just going to start with this. Bacon is one of these ingredients I like to render the fat out in a lot of dishes that I do, especially if I'm making like a quick sauce. It's one of the key things you can do to just add a lot of flavor really quickly to what you're doing. So I'm going to cut these into little lardons, and the reason I'm doing this is that once the bacon is cooked and rendered out and a little crispy, I actually want them to mirror the size of the sun-dried tomatoes that I'm actually going to add to this dish as well. I'm going to go ahead and start working on these tomatoes. These have chilled down quite nicely, and I'm going to quickly sort of peel these layers off. Typically with really ripe tomatoes, you want the flesh to be nice and juicy. You want it to be very red. You see, these are a bit orange. And so that's how I know they're not going to give me the complete ripeness that I want, which is fine. In another place and time, I could use canned tomatoes. That would be fine as well. When you're cooking something like shrimp, that's about $9 a pound, even higher than that, depending on the size of the shrimp. You want to be trying to stretch that amount out as much as possible, and using something like tomatoes that's typically $1 a pound is a really great way to do that, and really just add a lot of flavor and substance to what you're making without adding a lot of money. The next thing I want to do is quickly start our saucepan that we're going to build our sauce from. And so the first thing I want to do is start rendering out my bacon fat. To do that, I want to start our pan. Start it in a cold pan. I don't like to start bacon in a really, really hot pan so much. Gonna add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil just to get the pot going. The bacon is gonna render very nicely, but still we want to make sure that we're helping it along the way. So let's start this on medium heat. Okay, so I'm gonna work on these tomatoes really quickly. And all I want to do is just kind of do a nice dice on these. Nothing too fancy. It's all going to get chopped up and thrown into this sauce. You see lots of juice on here. That's a good sign that we're going to get a lot of flavor out of these tomatoes. This is about a pound of tomatoes. I'm going to quickly chop our onion. And for this, I'm going to use about half an onion. You see our bacon is starting to sizzle a little bit. So we want to just stir that around. Make sure that we're getting that fat out slowly, steadily. We don't want any charred bits. We want to get it crispy, but we want to just kind of slowly take our time with that. So we're going to multitask, folks. All right. So with this onion, you're going to be careful that your fingers are not in the path of the knife. If you notice, I sort of move my hand over just in case my knife slides off that skin of the onion. It's not going in the direction of my hand. So I stay safe that way. Our bacon is coming together really, really nicely here. While that's still working, I'm going to keep a close eye on this. Is start another smaller pot. This is the same chicken stock that we made previous video. Very easy to do. The huge cost saver. We're going to start this simmering in this pot here, like so. Now along with that, what I'm going to do is going to take this opportunity to use my shrimp shells and add as much flavor into this broth as I can. We've got our fresh shrimp here. It was previously frozen actually, but you know, that's not a problem. And you just have it like this. It's easy peel, so it's already been cut and deveined. And I just want to quickly take these shells off. Now I'm going to leave the tails on. If someone in your family has a food allergy, then you're not really so much worried because it's another warning sign for them to know that they shouldn't be eating the shrimp. Having that tail on makes it really, really clear, whether it's chopped up or not, that this is something you want to be careful around. So you could buy them unshelled, but you don't want to buy them pre-cooked. It's just never going to have the flavor that you want of the other ingredients in what you're doing. Our stock is boiling nicely. Now that I've got my shrimp peeled, I want to quickly get my shrimp shells in here, start getting that flavor building in the stock. Sit for a bit of time, let those flavors come together. And we're probably going to use all of that stock in there for our dish. Now, we've got our beautiful shrimp here. What I want to do, as always, I want to add just a little layer of toasted sesame oil. I add that to everything that I make here, and it's just going to add a nice, again, base for our flavors. So I've got about 6 cloves of garlic, and I'm just going to quickly build a nice paste with these. And cut the little stems off, create a little room on our board. And like I said, my friends Ryan and Cherise should be here any minute, and I can smell that shrimp flavor coming in just off of the shells, just in that a little bit of time. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce the heat on that, add a little olive oil to this, add some coarse salt on top of this, and we're going to go in with this garlic and we're going to work this until we're forming a paste with the edge of our knife. We're just going to use the weight of our fingers and just quickly pull that down. And use the salt as an abrasive to form a bit of a paste. This something takes a little practice, but it makes a huge difference in your finished product. You really do gotta add some power on this blade. So just be careful that your knife doesn't slip on your finger. And if it's not working for you, you can add a little bit more salt. That usually helps, but you wanna be making sure that you're watching your salt content because we've got salt in the bacon, salt in the broth, and now we've got salt in the garlic. Got our nice garlic paste. And that's gonna help us really get that flavor in more quickly. I want to make sure that we're adding plenty of tomato flavor. So So in addition to those ingredients, one other thing I'm gonna add is tomato paste and also sun-dried tomatoes. So I'm just gonna do a very quick chop on these. You never want anything too ungainly in the plate, especially in something like a stew, so that people can just enjoy the bites that they're getting. And the texture of the sun-dried tomato is gonna really play off of our bacon, and it's also gonna add just a lot of tomato flavor, since again, our tomatoes weren't as ripe as we really wanted them to be. So this is just one way to kind of bring that out. So I'm going to quickly remove our bacon from this pan. I want to leave a good deal of that fat and those darkened pieces down there. So we got our nice crispy bacon. If some pieces get a bit dark for you, that's fine. Just sort of scoop them out or separate them. And I want to bring this back up to medium heat. Once we get some heat in this pan, what I want to do is start building in our flavor with our garlic and our onion. So with that, it's time to start building our sauce. You see we've got our nice brown bits in our bacon. We want to start this heat sort of a little light. We don't want it too loud of a sizzle when we do this. So this medium heat is good. Oh, my friends are here. Come on in. What is going on, the Fuller family? Good to see you.
See you too.
So it's good to have y'all here. Welcome. I'm glad you made it home safely.
Thank you.
Safely from your home in Florida. What part of Florida do y'all live in?
We're in Melbourne.
Melbourne.
So it's like an hour
East
of
Orlando.
Okay, so were y'all impacted by the storm a lot? Or,
No,
obviously you had to evacuate, but...
Yeah.
We were initially forecasted to be
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That one was...
Irma shifted. Yeah, she changed directions.
west.
So, of course, this is your stress-free brunch. We're calling this the bad weather brunch.
Yes.
Yes.
So, it will not be brunch without champagne.
Yes.
And as you know, it is not champagne without a little help. We need a little help from our friend, Monsieur Hennessy. What I'm basically doing is taking an expensive item like Hennessy and then just stretching it flavor-wise with something less expensive like champagne.
Oh yeah, there it is.
A little pour here. If a little bit goes over, that's fine. I'm gonna set it in there.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Let's just have a quick toast to safety.
Yes. I can get with that.
Okay, now I'm gonna get back to this.
That's pretty good.
I'll show you. Set
Very
right there.
good.
I'm gonna get back to this sauce. I rendered the bacon fat into the pan.
Nice.
And so then there were like brown bits at the bottom of the pan. So I used the onion to sop that up.
Nice.
Gotcha. Okay.
So while our pan is still hot, I want to kind of just add in some garlic, get that garlic flavor going in there. And this is going to come together pretty quickly. I asked Ryan and Cherise whether they liked spicy, and the answer I really got was no.
From Ryan.
Well, right. So we've got some hot sauce, of course, if anyone needs added, a boost. But we'll leave the serranos out for today. Garlic burns really easily, so I don't want this to go too far before I add our next ingredient, but I do want to just soften it up a little bit. Earlier, I took our chicken stock and I added the shrimp shells to add more shrimpy flavor into the sauce itself, because the sauce is cooking really quickly. Obviously for brunch, you don't want to be in the kitchen trying to put a sauce together for hours and hours. You don't have time for that.
Right.
Again, we brought it up to temperature, let it cool down. Just gonna pour this out. All right, so we've got our shrimp broth ready. Our garlic is all simmering and sizzling over here nicely. So we know it is going to be ready for our next ingredient. I want to very quickly add in our sun-dried tomatoes.
Nice.
Okay.
You like sun-dried tomatoes?
Yes.
They're like one of my favorite things because it's like they come in a little jar And you can really add them to like pasta, you can add them to pizza, you can add them to a bunch of different things, and it adds a lot of flavor in really quickly, and you really don't have to do anything to it, it's just ready to go. I don't like to use a lot of processed ingredients, but tomato paste is just one of those things that it will save you every single time. So I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of butter to this. You can see all the flavor in the pan, you can see all the color here. I'm very happy with where this is. And so the only thing I want to do next is go ahead and toss in our tomatoes. I'm going to bring the temperature up just a little bit, right to medium. And these are our fresh tomatoes. We want to get these cooking. We want to just simmer this for probably about 10 minutes.
Okay.
But that is smelling quite nice. And while that's there, I'm gonna put some of this bacon back into the pot. Not all of it, I'm gonna save some for the top.
Okay.
But I kinda want that to start softening back up a little bit. And then I want some crispy bacon at the top. And our stock was already warm because we heated it up. So this is gonna help in this process. But I wanna add some of this stock that has our nice shrimp flavor in there. Bring this up to a boil. Just before we add our shrimp in, I want them to cook really gently. So I'm gonna bring this up to the boil, let it reduce a little bit, add the shrimp, let it, again, come back to a little light simmer, and then I wanna put it in the oven for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
So while that's in the oven, we'll be working on something else. So let's talk about grits, man. Now, did y'all know that grits are the official food of Georgia?
Really?
So like, I think it's like the official processed food of Georgia. I'm a grits purist. I'm not one of these people who like uses stock in their grits and uses all this other stuff. My grandma was real cut and dry. Like, you ain't putting nothing in these grits but salt, pepper, and some butter, and that's it. No cheese, no sugar.
Oh,
No,
I'm a sugar boy.
No, see, no.
From Arkansas.
disgusting.
Well,
That
we're gonna
is
change. We're
great.
gonna fix you before you leave. So we got our water
Yes.
boiling, and so grits. You've got about a ratio of like 6 to 1 that you want. The big tip with grits is that you want to just sort of create a bit of a cyclone in your pot. You want to be whisking the water as you pour the grits in. This has got a nice boil going on these grits. And this is about what I want it to look like. These might look a little thin, but I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer for 5 minutes. And then I want this to kind of start thickening up. And in about 1 or 2 minutes, I'm gonna reduce that boil on that. Got a nice simmer on this. Yes.
I like you dancing.
Yeah. A little dancing going on. You got to. I'm happy. Woo.
Right.
This sauce looks just like I want it to look before it goes into the oven.
Awesome.
And we're gonna drop all the shrimp right into this. Y'all.
Yeah, we gotta see this.
All right.
So good.
Yes.
I wanna bring this back up to a good rolling boil like it was before. I'm gonna put the lid on this. I'm gonna put it into a 375-degree oven for it to finish for about 12 minutes. And that's just gonna allow me to focus on some of my other ingredients like these grits.
So a cooking question, I guess.
Oh, sure.
What is your favorite dish to make?
Whew. I like making Liberian food. So like, it's like, for me, like cooking is not so much about like the process of cooking, but it's like always about like the memories associated.
Yeah.
And so like, growing up in Liberia, having like corned beef or even collard greens, those are like some of my favorite things to make because they just remind me of my family.
So my future request is that you have to make jollof rice.
Oh God. Now we're gonna do a jollof rice episode now, whether you here or not in Florida, 'cause you actually live in Florida.
Yeah.
Put this center rack. So we're gonna add a tablespoon of butter to this pot of grits. I'm going to lighten this up. Once our butter starts to melt, I'm gonna pour some cream in here. One thing I like to add to this dish, just to add another layer, is just a poached egg.
Oh,
Are
okay.
y'all into poached eggs?
I've never actually had a poached egg.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, they said. I don't recall
First time
having
for
one. So
everything.
yeah.
So a poached egg is an egg that's been submerged in liquid, typically water. And sometimes people use vinegar because it gives like a solution to bring the egg in. I don't like to do that. And I've already kind of gotten my egg poured out into this little container. Today is all about the cyclone. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
The little hurricane.
Yeah, get.
We're going to create a little spinning motion. We're going to gently place our egg in that. And you see it's all going to come together. And then that way we're not having to use vinegar to create that effect. So that actually has been in here long enough and this egg is nice and cooked. So what I want to do is just lift this out.
Oh wow.
This is so interesting.
Right.
And I'm going to just check this pot with our shrimp and grits in it. Just taste it. It's good. There's not a lot of salt. I'm just gonna add a little bit more. So when you moved to Florida, was that a part of something that was in your head, like that you would have to evacuate it at some point, or?
No.
But I will say it was one of those things when we realized it was hurricane season, it was kind of like, oh, in the event that there is going to be a hurricane, we'll just go back to Atlanta.
Okay, so you figured out a family plan.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was our family plan. Just like, okay, if there's ever a hurricane that's over like a 2.5, if there's a such thing,
Right, like just,
we'll just play it safe and go to Atlanta.
but what do you think about like all these people who like every single time they're always just like staying back and like, oh well, we rode out this one and we beat Andrew and we did this and they just stay. What do you think?
I think they're crazy.
Yeah.
But it works out for some people. Like I have a coworker. Her husband was like, "No, I'm not leaving." And she was like, "Are you crazy? It's a Category 5," and he would not leave. So they stayed, and fortunately, Irma shifted to the West Coast.
Right.
But I was like, if Irma would have come to
know
the East
that
Coast,
going in.
exactly.
Right.
And that was our thing. We're like, we're not risking it.
When we saw the map of Irma, literally Category 4 coming straight through our city, we were like, there's no way.
And y'all have a kid too, so it's different.
And that was
Exactly.
You can't. It's one thing if it's just adults and y'all can go a few days without
Electricity.
electricity and stuff.
Yeah.
Kids can't.
And
Or
we live in
elderly
Florida,
or-
everything is electric. So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't have gas. So yeah, we would.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
wouldn't have had
It's like, yeah.
stove, microwave, nothing.
Like, were there shelters in your area that were preparing?
Yes.
So Florida is really good. Like
Oh, yeah.
all the schools, like for the most part, like all the public schools have the capacity to become shelters.
Okay. Who might
And they
not
have
know.
pet-friendly shelters.
That was a big thing too this year that I never really thought about.
Yep.
'Cause I don't have a pet.
Oh,
We
yeah.
went to get dog food, and this lady was in the pet store, and they were out of dog cages. And the lady was in the store, and she was like, "No, this just isn't gonna work." And I felt so bad, and I'm like, "Man, like, what are you gonna do?"
So now I always do the big reveal on this side. Well,
It's your show.
Right. To say which camera is the best.
it is my show.
It
Yeah, it is. Do it your way.
Counselor.
TV.
I'm so glad y'all could join me.
We're so glad to be
you
here.
invited us. I'm like, yes.
It's nice. You see no lumps
Look at it.
whatsoever. Smooth, creamy grits. And now remember, we're gonna have our poached egg join us right in the center, so we don't want to crowd the center too much. I'm just gonna slide this right on. Fresh parsley. And then just a few pieces of that crispy bacon. Now, what do y'all think about that plate?
Oh, that
That
is
is
delicious.
gorgeous. That is gorgeous.
Right.
All right, so here we go. Thank you all for being patient. And here are our finished shrimp and grits.
Our compliments to the chef.
Yes. Our favorite chef.
That would be me. All right, so why don't y'all take a bite, let me know what y'all think.
not little. It's a big bite.
I know, right? This is really good.
Wow, it's really good.
This is really good.
So the shrimp, dry tomato, and the bacon come together really well.
Nice.
And the shrimp is cooked perfectly. Like, the grits are amazing.
Yeah.
Can I get some cream?
Yes, gotta get.
So I like that little crunchy bite from the bacon that you get when you eat the grits.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the poached egg works too.
But that egg kind of comes in there just at the right time.
Yeah.
I want to try with the
You know, the spice.
spice. Yeah.
Oh, you want some hot sauce? Now you know I got some hot sauce now.
Of course, Liberian nation up here. Get it.
I got actually one of my YouTube friends, Farmer G, sent
Farmer
me
G.
this homemade hot sauce.
Okay.
And it's actually really good. It's not very hot,
Okay.
but it's good though.
Come on, farmer juice.
I just couldn't imagine having to like pack up and leave, but at least y'all can go back.
So grateful.
I've been down there.
We've been in
Almost 4 months now?
That hot sauce is really good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so when you consider just the sort of spike in disaster, you know, whether it's an earthquake, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's, you know, they automatically impact our access to food. And it might not be in a way that you can predict. So, you know, where you think you're comfortable and you can just go get eggs at the store, you can just go get tomatoes at the store. That's not always
do that.
either. So how do you prepare for shortages, or how do you prepare for, you know, when food prices spike? Like,
Right. And that's one of the good things because right now, where we were at, there was no eggs. There were probably no loaves of
when the
butter.
storm started, when people knew the storm was coming.
When people start spazzing out. But people were being silly. There was a lady, she, like, not even exaggerating, had 10 cases of water.
And the person who was with her also had 10 cases of water.
I was like,
Okay,
what are you
well-
gonna do with this?
So, okay, here's the thing. You're supposed to have like at least 1 gallon
Per person.
of water per person per day.
There are really good tips out there. Like one guy was saying, pretty much like put water in Ziploc bags in the freezer, freeze them before the storm so the power goes out. You have ice, and if you thought you have drinking water.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like, oh.
That is really smart, actually.
It was like, stuff like that. I'm learning from Florida.
Thank you all so much for joining me on The Counter TV. This has been a passion of mine for quite some time, and I'm very grateful to be able to bring this to you on YouTube. Of course, I wouldn't be able to do so without so much of your support, and I want to thank specifically our producer level sponsors. These are everyone who has donated at least $100 to paypal.me/JKH2 or via the Amazon wish list. I ask you to continue to support. If you'd like to become a producer level sponsor and be recognized in the credits, please make a donation of at least $100 to paypal.me/JKH2. And of course, a donation in any amount is appreciated and used towards the show, or my other show, Not on My Watch TV. So make sure you check that out as well. Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you again very soon.